I never thought I'd be the guy typing one of these long posts. But here I am. My wife, let's call her Sarah, and I have been married for 8 years, together for nearly a decade. On paper, we had what most people would call a solid marriage. Decent jobs, a house in the suburbs, no kids yet, but we had been trying. At least that's what I thought. Looking back now, I can see the cracks started forming about a year ago. Sarah started nitpicking everything I did. The way I loaded the dishwasher was wrong. The way I folded laundry was lazy. Even how I breathed at night became some kind of crime. At first, I chalked it up to stress. She'd just gotten promotion at work, and I figured maybe she was overwhelmed. But then little things started piling up. Her phone always glued to her hand, her suddenly working late nights, and the cold shoulder in the bedroom. It wasn't just lack of intimacy. It was like she was actively irritated by my existence. I kept telling myself it was a phase. I mean, couples go through rough patches, right? But deep down, I already had that gnawing feeling in my gut. You know the one. The kind that whispers, something isn't right here. So the moment everything came crashing down happened on a random Tuesday night. Sarah had forgotten her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. Normally, I wouldn't touch her stuff. I've never been that guy. But this time, the damn thing lit up with a text preview that read, "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." My stomach dropped. I remember my hands actually shaking as I picked it up. The message was from a contact saved as Mandy Work. Funny thing is, Sarah doesn't even have a co-worker named Mandy. Against my better judgment, I opened the thread, and there it was, dozens of messages back and forth. Flirty, suggestive, downright explicit at times. And the kicker? Mandy was definitely a man. He sent a shirtless gym pic with his name in the corner of the mirror. His name wasn't Mandy, it was Jason. In that moment, everything clicked. The late nights, the sudden disinterest in me, the way she guarded her phone, like it was the nuclear codes. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. And the worst part? My first thought wasn't even anger. It was disbelief. Like maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe it was some weird joke. But the longer I scrolled, the more undeniable it became. My wife was having an affair. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, humming like nothing in the world was wrong, I was already sitting at the kitchen table with her phone in front of me, unlocked, the conversation with Mandy Work wide open. My voice came out steadier than I expected, though it was shaking underneath, as I asked her who Jason was. She froze for half a second, then rolled her eyes like I was some annoying child, and snapped that going through her phone was a new low for me. The gaslighting started instantly. She lunged forward to grab the phone and spit out excuses as quickly as she could, telling me it was just a friend, that I didn't understand her sense of humor, that I was overreacting. When I didn't buy it, she shifted tactics, sneering that maybe if I wasn't so boring she wouldn't have to look elsewhere for excitement. That one cut deeper than I could have prepared for. I just sat there, stunned, my chest on fire with disbelief and rage. When I finally pushed her harder, demanded the truth without giving her room to dodge, she exploded. She said fine, yes, she had been seeing him, but it wasn't serious. It was just fun, and I needed to get over it. Hearing those words felt like something inside me cracked in two. The reality of what she was saying and the casual cruelty with which she said it left me hollow. The shock hit first, like someone had pulled the floor out from under me. I sat there staring at her, barely able to process the fact that my wife of 8 years had just admitted to sleeping with another man and dismissed it like it was no big deal. My chest felt tight, my hand was shaking, and I remember my ears ringing like I'd been standing too close to the speaker. Then the anger came flooding in, hot and heavy, like gasoline on a fire. Every late night at the office, every "I'm too tired" in bed, every snide little jab she'd thrown my way over the past year suddenly made sense. And I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, break something, do anything to release the pressure building inside me. Instead, I just clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms and told her I couldn't believe she would betray me like this. She just rolled her eyes again, muttered that I was being dramatic, and walked out of the room as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in our marriage. I sat there alone, stunned and furious, feeling like my entire life had been ripped apart in the span of 15 minutes. After the rage simmered down, the sadness hit me like a tidal wave. I sat there at the kitchen table long after she'd stormed off the bedroom, staring at nothing, just feeling the weight of it all sink into my chest. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was grief. Grief for the marriage I thought we had, for the woman I believed she was, for the years I had poured into building a life with someone who clearly didn't value it the way I did. The house felt suffocatingly quiet, and yet every sound she made down the hall, her dresser drawers opening, her phone buzzing again, stabbed at me. I couldn't even bring myself to call a friend or family member. I didn't want to hear my own voice say the words out loud. Instead, I just sat alone, replaying every memory, every conversation, every laugh we'd shared, and wondering which parts had been lies. The loneliness was crushing, like I was already divorced but hadn't gotten the paperwork yet. For the first time in my life, I felt utterly abandoned while sitting 10 feet away from the person who was supposed to be my partner. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She came into the kitchen, poured herself coffee, and asked if I wanted toast, like we hadn't just torn our marriage open the night before. When I pressed her again, asked her to explain what the hell was going on, she switched gears and started spinning more lies. First, she insisted it was only emotional, that nothing physical had happened, which was laughable considering the messages I'd read. When I called her out, she pivoted, saying she'd only slept with him once, that it was a mistake. Then 5 minutes later, she admitted it had been going on for months, but tried to downplay it by saying it didn't mean anything. It was like she couldn't even keep her own story straight, and every new excuse felt like another knife twisting in my back. The casual way she lied, the way she stared at me like I was stupid for not swallowing her half-baked stories, made me realize this wasn't some one-time lapse in judgment. This was someone who was used to lying to my face and feeling no shame about it. The breaking point came a few days later, when I caught her sneaking out under the flimsiest excuse imaginable. She told me she was going to Target to pick up cleaning supplies. An hour went by. Then, too, I checked the location app we'd set up years ago when we first bought our house, and sure enough, she wasn't at Target. She was across town at some apartment complex. My blood went cold. When she finally came home, I was waiting on the porch. She looked startled for a split second, then plastered on this fake smile, and held up a single bag with paper towels in it, like that proved anything. I asked her straight up if she'd been with Jason, and she tried to laugh it off, saying, "Oh my God, are you seriously tracking me now? You're paranoid." That was it. I felt something inside me snap. I told her I wasn't her fool, I wasn't her doormat, and I wasn't going to stand there while she disrespected me in my own home. She rolled her eyes and brushed past me into the house, muttering that I was overreacting again. That dismissive tone, that blatant disregard for truth, made me realize I couldn't keep living like this. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, running through everything in my head on repeat. The texts, the lies, the gaslighting, the Target excuse. I realized that if I didn't take control of the situation, she was just going to keep walking all over me until there was nothing left of me to salvage. The marriage I thought I had was already dead, but I was still clinging to the corpse out of habit and fear. So the next morning, before she even woke up, I grabbed a notebook and started writing down every detail I could remember, dates, excuses, little red flags I'd ignored. I made copies of the texts, backed up photos of her late-night messages with Jason, and even saved her Target trip location history. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sliver of clarity cut through the fog. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the narrative or make me the crazy one. I was going to protect myself, and if that meant ending things, so be it. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my sanity. The fallout started when I finally broke down and told my best friend what was going on. I hadn't want to say anything to anyone because I felt embarrassed, like admitting my wife was cheating somehow made me weak. But as soon as I spilled everything, he didn't hesitate. He told me flat out that I needed to stop protecting her image and start protecting myself. That pushed me to tell my sister and then my parents. Each time I explained the situation, it became more real, and I started noticing how people reacted. Nobody was surprised. That stung. My sister even said she'd always gotten a mean girl vibe from Sarah, but bit her tongue for my sake. Friends told me they'd noticed how she talked down to me at gatherings, how she made snide jokes at my expense, how she seemed checked out long before I realized it. It was humiliating to know everyone else had seen what I had refused to face. But at the same time, their support gave me strength. For the first time, I didn't feel so alone in it. The walls of secrecy she'd built were crumbling, and the truth was spilling out for everyone to see. After the truth started spreading among the people closest to me, I knew I couldn't just keep floating in limbo. One evening, I sat Sarah down at the dining table and told her flat out that things couldn't continue like this. I laid out everything. The lies, the sneaking around, the gaslighting. I told her she had two choices. End the affair completely, commit to counseling, and actually show me some respect, or pack her things and get out. For a brief moment, I thought she might choose the first option. She looked nervous, even a little guilty. But then she flipped the switch again, arms crossed, eyes cold, saying I was trying to control her and that she wasn't about to be bossed around like a child. It was like watching someone slam a door in my face while I was begging them to care. That was my answer, loud and clear. I realized my ultimatum wasn't about giving her a chance. It was about giving myself clarity. And the clarity was this. She didn't want to save us. The day after the ultimatum, I started moving forward with separation. I contacted a lawyer, something I never imagined I'd be doing at this stage of my life, and laid out everything I had documented. The lawyer didn't even flinch. Apparently my story wasn't unique, but hearing her calmly outline next steps made it feel official in a way that shook me to my core. When I told Sarah, she barely reacted. She just shrugged and said, "Fine, if that's what you want," like she was agreeing to order takeout instead of ending a marriage. Watching her indifference hurt more than if she had screamed or cried. She started sleeping in the guest room, staying out later than ever, and it was clear she had one foot already out the door. The house felt like a morgue, two strangers passing each other in hallways, speaking only when necessary. It was surreal to think that the woman I had once pictured growing old was now just a roommate I couldn't stand to be around. Once the separation line was drawn, the atmosphere in the house shifted completely. We were still under the same roof, but it was like we were ghosts haunting different parts of the same building. She spent most of her time locked in the guest room or out with friends, which I knew was just code for seeing Jason. I stopped asking where she was going or when she'd be back. I no longer cared. I started cooking my own meals, doing my own laundry, even watching TV in silence with the volume down low, so I wouldn't have to hear her stomping around. At work, I forced myself to keep it together, but the second I got home, the loneliness swallowed me whole. Nights were the hardest. I'd lay in the bed we once shared, staring at the empty space beside me, wondering how many nights she had filled it with someone else in spirit, if not in body. Strangely enough, though, there was also a growing sense of relief. The lies weren't working on me anymore. The gaslighting had lost its grip. It was miserable, but at least I could finally see things for what they were. Acceptance didn't come in one big wave. It crept in slowly, piece by piece. One night, I realized I hadn't checked her phone in weeks, not because I trusted her, but because I just didn't care anymore. Another day, I caught myself laughing at something stupid on TV, and it struck me that I hadn't genuinely laughed in months. I started going to gym again, reconnected with friends I'd pulled away from, even picking up old hobbies I'd let die because Sarah never thought they were worth my time. The more I focused on myself, the less space she took up in my head. Of course, there were still nights when the sadness would creep back in, but instead of drowning in it, I reminded myself that I had survived the worst part already, the betrayal, the lies, the humiliation. Slowly, I began to believe that maybe this wasn't just the end of my marriage, but the beginning of something better. I was learning that my worth didn't hinge on whether Sarah wanted me or not. The final break came during what turned out to be our last real conversation. She casually mentioned that Jason was thinking of moving in with her once this is all finalized, as if I should be happy for her. That was the moment I knew there was no shred of us left to salvage. I told her I was filing for divorce immediately and that I didn't want another word from her except through our lawyers. She smirked, tossed out a sarcastic good luck, and went back to scrolling on her phone. Oddly enough, Her apathy gave me a sense of peace. I had spent so long waiting for her to show some sign of remorse, some flicker of the woman I used to know, but all she had to offer was indifference. That clarity gave me the strength to cut the cord completely. No more conversations, no more begging for honesty, no more pretending. Just done. Looking back now, I see the affair wasn't just about Sarah cheating. It was about the way I lost myself in a relationship with someone who never valued me. I spent years ignoring the red flags, convincing myself things would get better, until the truth was shoved in my face. It hurt like hell, but it also woke me up. I learned that love without respect is just a trap, that lies rot a relationship from the inside, and that clinging to someone who treats you like an afterthought only prolongs the pain. My advice to anyone reading this is simple. Trust your gut, document the truth, and don't let anyone gaslight you into believing their betrayal is your fault. No amount of history or shared memories is worth sacrificing your self-respect. If your partner can look you in the eye and lie without flinching, then you're not in a marriage, you're in a cage. And walking away, even when it feels impossible, is the only way to set yourself free.